This is the USS Enterprise calling the Metro.
Long before Leonard Nimoy was Mr. Spock, he was Mr. Photo.
When I was about 13, a neighborhood kid showed me that you could develop a roll of film in the bathroom.
Really? Yeah.
That's how I learned to do it, and I fell in love with photography, and I've been doing it ever since.
And what was your first camera?
The first camera I have upstairs here was an old Kodak.
In fact, this is one of Leonard Nimoy's first photographs. His grandfather, taken in the early 1940s.
He was the first one to come over and sent the money back to Russia to bring the rest of the family to the United States. So he was the pioneer.
This is the actual camera.
That's it.
And to this day, that little boy's fascination with the lens has never faded. This photographer, however, has matured.
It took 4 hours to get the image, to get the paint on her.
A long time.
She was a wonderful, patient young lady.
His Los Angeles home is an art photography museum. Upstairs are red beacon globes.
So this is where you work. This is kind of your sanctuary.
Exactly. It takes fierce concentration from me.
Why is that?
Well, because the nature of the work demands very specific attention to what you're doing to get it right.
It's here in the darkroom where you'll find Nimoy's chemical-soaked hands constantly creating something new. For instance, this self-portrait of the two men that comprise Leonard Nimoy.
There's a two-faced person here, and that suggests the actor who wears a mask when he works. So one of me is me, and the other of me is a performer.
You first wrote a book that said, I am not Spock. Then you wrote a book that said,
You got it.
I am Spock.
So one of these is not, and one of these is.
These messages will detail my attempt to contact the aliens.
An alien celebrity hero to millions, Leonard Nimoy has his own down-to-earth set of heroes, photographers like the late Helmut Newton,
This is a rather famous pair of images that he did.
master photographer of the female nude. This is Newton's Zay Coman, and this is Leonard Nimoy's version.
In the past, you've shot the female form, but in the classic look, as you said in the book.
Beauty is culture-driven. Our culture tells us, I've been telling it for some years now, skinny is beautiful, but beauty is a big word. It shouldn't be limited to just skinny.
Nimoy's full-body project subjects moonlight as a burlesque show up in the Bay Area. He made the call, and they made the trip down the 5 freeway.
So who are these women? Did you get to know them?
Computer technicians, they are accountants, they are social service people.
So these are people you see every day.
That's right.
Beauty in the eye of the camera holder, decades after his first family photos.
This picture is really indicative of their personality. My mother was curious, my dad just kept right on walking.
You might say Leonard Nimoy is still turning heads and sparking curiosity.
It's a different kind of coffee table book. And one of the critics said this is not your typical coffee table book, but it should be. Because it shows beauty of a different kind.
Can we talk about Star Trek a little bit? Go back into the past a little?
Emotion from Spock. 42 years after the Enterprise left space dock, Leonard Nimoy invited us into his Los Angeles home for a few questions from a lifelong fan.
Sure, what do you want to know?
Well, in 1966,
Yeah.
you were offered the role of Spock.
Yeah.
To boldly go where no man has gone before.
Gene Roddenberry created the half-human, half-alien science officer. Leonard Nimoy helped create those little details that are now etched into interplanetary pop culture.
Worked on the ears, worked on the eyebrows, the haircut. and then this came into being.
This is something you saw in Shul.
Yeah, in a synagogue, yeah.
Live long, T'Pau, and prosper.
The Vulcan salute resembles the Hebrew letter Shin. Leonard Nimoy first saw this when he was 8 years old, sitting in temple with his father and his grandfather.
There comes a point where the members of the priestly tribe, they're known as Kohanim, get up to bless the congregation.
And it burned into your brain somewhere.
I learned to do it, practiced it religiously. I didn't think it would come in handy someday, but it did.
This House of Spock
That was given to me by the crew when I directed Star Trek 3.
is filled with priceless pieces.
This happens to be the very last pair of ears that I wore in 1968 when we finished making the original series.
This is Vasquez Rocks, just about 45 miles northeast of Los Angeles. Recognize it? That is classic Star Trek right there. That's why this is one of the locations for the 11th Star Trek movie, now in production and starring Leonard Nimoy as Spock. Well, as one Spock at least.
He has reason to doubt.
There are a total of 3 Spocks in the movie. That's all I'm going to say about it.
This angled Earth is not only famous for its connection to the 23rd century.
I started filming in Vasquez Rocks in the late 50s, early 60s.
Zombies of the stratosphere.
This campy space serial was one of Leonard Nimoy's first acting jobs here in L.A. It was 1952.
Our radio Marek said you've arrived safely. You'd better wait to see if he has any further orders.
He played, what else? An alien.
Well, that seems to be all. Take off at once. Yes, sir.
It was shot. Where else? Vasquez Rocks.
Prepare for a landing.
Nimoy's Martian zombie was one-dimensional. Mr. Spock, however, is a man of nuance and isolation in Starfleet. That's why he's one science fiction character that continues to prosper after 42 years of long life.
I was able to identify with the inner life of that character, and I think that's the most important thing that I could bring to it.
I'm Dave Malkoff, KCAL 9 News.